They start simple. A nod at the gym, a smile on the street, a laugh over drinks, innocent, harmless. But some people don't stop. Some obsessions crawl into your life, silent at first, then loud, invasive, always watching. You'll hear whispers behind doors, footsteps in empty halls, voices calling your name in the dark. Screens light up with messages that freeze your blood. Shadows linger where none should be. You begin to feel it, the weight of eyes that shouldn't exist, the creeping certainty that someone is closer than you think. In these stories, the ordinary becomes terrifying. Friendships twist into fear. Breakups turn into threats. Gym routines become traps of stalking eyes. And just when you think you're safe, they're there, watching, waiting, and you can't run fast enough. Welcome to Shadows of Obsession. Every word of this story will pull you closer to the darkness. Use headphones. I'm Azad, Ga Chomchom.
It all began in the most ordinary way possible, the way many casual gym friendships start. You see the same person over and over again. At first, you pretend not to notice them. Then one day you make brief eye contact and nod. Eventually, it becomes a routine greeting. Hey, what's up? Nothing serious. At the time, I was going to my gym almost every day after work. Same time, same routine. Lift, shower, go home. It was the only predictable part of my life. That's when I started noticing Josh. Josh was one of those guys who clearly wanted people to see him as a serious lifter. He always wore tight athletic shirts that showed off his muscles, carried a large black duffel bag, and constantly walked around with a shaker bottle in his hand. The guy seemed to live in that gym. At first, it was nothing more than silent acknowledgement. When we passed each other near the dumbbells, we'd nod. Normal gym behavior. But Josh was unusually eager to turn that silent acknowledgement into something more. He would smile too widely, raising his chin in greeting like we were already friends. One evening, I was about to start my bench press routine when I noticed Josh was using the bench rack next to mine. As I finished loading my weights, he looked over at me. "Hey man, can you spot me for a sec?" I shrugged. "Sure." I stepped behind the bench while he unracked the bar. To be fair, the guy was strong. He pushed through several clean reps before struggling on the final one. I quickly guided the bar back onto the rack. He sat up immediately, breathing hard. Then the conversation started. It was like he had been waiting for that moment. "How long you been lifting?" he asked quickly. "What's your split? Chest today?" It was standard gym talk, but he spoke fast, almost too fast. I told him the basics, nothing personal. But Josh asked more questions. Where was I from? Where did I work? Did I live nearby? I kept things vague, just general answers. "I'm from around here," I said casually. Josh laughed loudly. "No way, dude, same here, that's crazy." The way he said it made it sound like fate had just brought us together. Before I returned to my workout, Josh suddenly held out his phone. "You got Instagram?" It felt normal enough. People exchange socials all the time now. So I followed him. That simple decision would later feel like a mistake. Over the next few weeks, Josh became part of my routine. If he saw me, he'd come over immediately. "What are you training today?" "Bro, try this grip. You should slow that rep down." It was like he had appointed himself my coach. I never asked for advice, but it wasn't exactly rude either. Just too much. Sometimes he would DM me random gym memes, videos of guys failing lifts or dramatic bodybuilding edits with intense music. I usually reacted with a laughing emoji and moved on. I didn't want to be rude. He just seemed like a guy who really wanted a gym friend. Then, one afternoon, he messaged me about a local town festival happening that weekend. Food trucks, cheap drinks, live music. "You should come," he wrote. "We'll hang out." I hesitated, but eventually I agreed. It seemed harmless enough. I figured it would be a quick hangout. If things got awkward, I could leave early. The day of the festival arrived. I met Josh in the middle of a crowded street lined with food vendors and flashing carnival lights. The first thing I noticed was that he felt completely different outside the gym. At the gym, he controlled energy. Here, it was like someone had removed his volume control entirely. "Nolan!" he shouted when he saw me. He rushed over with a huge grin and slapped my shoulder like we were lifelong friends. Then something strange happened. He started talking in different voices. At first, it sounded like a joke, a high-pitched cartoon voice. Then suddenly a deep villain voice. He would say normal sentences, but in these weird, exaggerated impressions. "So, Nolan, ready to party?" he squeaked in a nasal tone. I laughed awkwardly. It was so random it almost seemed funny. But the voices never stopped. They kept changing. High, low, whispering, growling. It felt less like a joke and more like something he couldn't control. As the evening went on and the alcohol started flowing, his behavior became even stranger. Josh began pointing at random people in the crowd, making inappropriate comments loudly enough for others to hear. Families walked by, kids ran around nearby, and Josh kept making shocking jokes like he wanted someone to react. I kept forcing tight smiles. "Dude, chill," I muttered once. Josh leaned closer to me. Then, he whispered my name in a long, creepy tone. "Nolan." The way he said it sent a small shiver down my spine. At the time, I told myself he was just drunk, just awkward, just trying too hard to be funny. But looking back now, that was the first moment something about Josh felt deeply wrong.
After that chaotic festival, things changed. The DMs started coming more frequently. At first, it was harmless. Memes, gym jokes, random videos. But slowly, it became constant check-ins. "Hey, what are you doing? Going to the gym later? Wanna hang?" Every message carried a weight I couldn't shake. At first, I responded out of politeness, but soon I began ignoring him, hoping he would get the hint. Then came the night at the bar. He insisted we meet up and invited 2 girls to make it a group hang. I agreed. It seemed normal. Maybe we'd all have fun. But when I arrived, Josh was already there, buzzed, half drunk. His eyes had that glassy look, that strange mixture of excitement and obsession. "Where are the girls?" I asked. "They bailed," he said, casually, like it happened every night. I felt a pit in my stomach. He had lied just to get me there. And then, the voices began again. Not the playful cartoon ones this time. This was worse. Low guttural growls, high-pitched wails, fake laughter, deep villain tones. He interwove them into our conversation, right at the table. Everyone around us turned, smirking or looking annoyed. He didn't care. In fact, he seemed to lean into the attention. "Nolan, listen," he whispered in a scratchy, fake spooky voice. He said my name repeatedly, almost like a chant. Every tone, every inflection anchored me to M. I forced laughter. My skin crawled. My teeth were clenched beneath the grin I plastered on my face. I wanted out. Eventually, I made an excuse, helping my brother, some urgent task at home. I left without looking back. Josh didn't even say goodbye. The bar patrons watched, undoubtedly noticing the spectacle. Relief washed over me as I drove away. But the nightmare didn't end there.
The next day, he appeared at the gym. Same routine, same hyper-friendly energy. He didn't acknowledge the previous night. He followed me from station to station, asking questions, making comments. Every hint I gave that I wanted distance was ignored. He had decided I was his, and he wasn't letting go. Soon I started altering my schedule. Morning, late night, varying my routine. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And the DMs, they escalated. "You good? Why are you being cold?" Every notification with his name was a knot in my stomach. I started avoiding Instagram altogether. Then came the night I'll never forget. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep. The summer night was hot. The window cracked slightly. My room faced the backyard. I heard it, a low, drawn-out voice outside. "Nolan." The hair on my arms stood on end. It wasn't loud, just close enough to feel like he was right there, under my window. My first thought, how did he even know where I lived? I grabbed my phone, fingers trembling, and messaged him. "Are you outside my house?" Seen. Seconds ticked by. Then, no. One word, minimal effort, incredibly suspicious. That night, I barely slept. Every rustle of wind sounded like him moving outside. The next evening, it happened again. Only now, it was farther back in the yard, near the fence. Same voice, same drawn-out whisper. "Nolan." I checked the yard, empty, silent, but I felt eyes on me. Finally, I sent a last warning. If he didn't leave, I would contact the police. I blocked him on all social media. I tried to convince myself it was over, but then I saw the shadow outside my window, a dark silhouette outlined in the faint summer light. I yelled, shaking. The shadow vanished. I checked the locks, bolted everything, and installed cameras around my house. Motion lights, Ring app alerts. 3 weeks passed. Nothing. Then, my rear tire, slashed, clean, intentional. I didn't confront him. I knew he was watching, waiting for a reaction. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. A guy I met in the gym, a place I thought was safe, had become obsessed with me. And once that obsession is rooted, there's almost no way to escape. I changed gyms. I stopped posting online. I changed my routes. And yet, even with precautions, the feeling of being watched never left. Every small sound at night made my heart race. Every shadow seemed alive. It was a simple friendship turned into a living nightmare. One that showed me just how thin the line is between ordinary acquaintance and terrifying obsession.
Before the rest of the story begins, I need to ask, are you facing this fear alone? How does it feel? Write it in the comments. If you're new here, subscribe.
My name is Lewis, 22 years old, living in a quiet small town in Kansas. Life was normal, safe. I worked at a Mexican restaurant, had been there for 4 years, and my gym routine was almost sacred. I went every evening with my friend Colton, a chill 19-year-old redneck type who was dating a cheerleader named Addie at the time. Colton and Addie's relationship was toxic. Constant fights, jealousy, and then came the final straw. Addie cheated on him with multiple guys. Colton ended things. Addie did not take it well. One Tuesday night, Colton and I went to the gym, drinking pre-workout as usual. Around 7 p.m., the gym was quiet, just a handful of regulars. Then the door opened. A girl walked in, red hoodie, blue leggings. She paused, stared at us, not the usual wandering glance. She moved toward the women's locker room, but kept looking back. Something about her gaze felt unnatural. A few minutes later, Strange noises came from the locker room. Whispering mixed with soft crying. Unstable, frantic. I exchanged a glance with Colton. We tried to ignore it. Minutes later, she emerged. Same clothes, no workout, no change. Just drifting. Watching us, following our movements from a distance. Hovering too close. I told Colton I was getting uneasy. We moved machines, hoping to shake the feeling. And then, she was gone. Not just out of sight, gone. As if she had vanished into thin air. We finished our session and walked outside. That's when I noticed a car in the parking lot, lights on. Strange. Only a few others were there. 10 minutes later, Colton texted me. "Remember that girl?" "Yeah," I replied. What if it was Addie? My stomach dropped. The thought seemed impossible, yet terrifyingly plausible. I tried to convince myself it wasn't her, maybe just some random girl, but the unease lingered. Later that night, I heard knocking on my brother's window. Quiet at first, then at my window. No one was there. Then the front door violently shook. Not a gentle knock, someone trying to break in. Then laughter, hysterical, unhinged laughter. I felt my stomach twist into knots, sick, frozen. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Leave Colton alone. You ruined everything. Now you'll pay." Attached, a photo of a knife in her hand. I knew instantly. Addie. The police were called. My dad, thankfully awake, answered immediately. Within minutes, officers arrived and found her sitting in the grass near our house, laughing quietly to herself, waiting. She was arrested on the spot, confessed everything, threatening messages, stalking, trying to intimidate me. The scariest part, how she got my address. I never gave it to her. Colton didn't either. The thought that she could locate me so easily sent chills down my spine. After that night, I was hyper-aware. Doors locked, lights on, curtains drawn. Every noise outside made me tense. What started as a typical breakup had escalated into something dark, personal, and terrifying. A simple decision, ending a relationship, had unleashed a dangerous obsession, reminding me that sometimes the people closest to us can become our greatest threats.
After Addie's arrest, I tried to convince myself the nightmare was over, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave me. Every time I left the house, I scanned the streets. Every stranger seemed suspicious. Even familiar faces made me uneasy. Colton and I stopped going out late at night. The gym trips felt tense. Every step, every turn was measured. Even with the threat of police intervention, her presence lingered like a shadow, invisible but heavy. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to some form of normalcy. I kept my blinds closed, my door locked at all times. But small signs still unnerved me. A car slowing down too long, a shadow flickering past a window, the faint whisper of laughter on a windless night. One evening, I was driving home from work. I noticed a car following me. Same make and model as the one that had been in the gym parking lot the night she appeared. My pulse spiked. I took a detour, looping through side streets. The car mirrored every turn. It followed me for miles. Finally, I parked near a gas station. It stayed across the street for several minutes before slowly driving away. I realized she hadn't stopped even after arrest. How much could she have learned about me in just a few days? Was she obsessed enough to bypass legal consequences? My mind raced. Even at the gym, I felt uneasy. Colton and I tried to maintain our routine, but I started changing times, avoiding the usual evenings. The thought that she could appear anywhere, at any time, haunted me.
Then came the texts, unfamiliar numbers, images, veiled threats, messages sent to friends, hints about my movements. She had found a way to stay close, to make her presence felt without being seen. Sleep became impossible. Every knock, every wind chime's jingle, every rustle of leaves outside my window sent me into a panic. My sanctuary had been invaded, even if only mentally. The scariest moments weren't direct encounters. They were the moments of quiet, the empty spaces where her presence was imagined. My home, once safe, felt like a stage for a constant performance of fear. Colton tried to reassure me. "She's gone, man, you're safe now." But the rational voice couldn't reach the part of me that had felt her stalking gaze, that had imagined her standing in the shadows, waiting. Every normal activity, gym, running errands, even sitting in my room became a game of vigilance. I checked windows, I locked doors twice, I scanned the streets. Every car, every pedestrian could be her. It was a constant psychological torment, the kind that doesn't end with arrests or restraining orders. The danger was not just physical, it was the invisible threat of obsession, the knowledge that someone who once cared for you can turn into a relentless predator. Even now, months later, I still flinch when I hear footsteps outside at night. I still avoid posting online. I still glance over my shoulder when walking down empty streets. The terror she invoked has left a lasting mark, a permanent reminder of the thin line between human affection and human danger.
Before the rest of the story begins, I need to ask, are you facing this fear alone? How does it feel? Write it in the comments. If you're new here, subscribe.
I'm 25, and I've been going to the same LA Fitness for years. After work, around 6 p.m., I would head there, headphones in, focused on my routine. Over time, you start to recognize the regulars, familiar faces, familiar habits. But about 6 months ago, I noticed someone new, a man I had never seen before. The first time I truly noticed him, I was doing squats. When I looked up at the mirror, he was sitting on a chest press machine behind me, not using it, just sitting, leaning forward, elbows on knees, staring. When I met his gaze, he quickly looked away, almost too fast. The next time I saw him, he was on a lat pull-down machine across the gym. Again, idle, watching, following. Every glance toward me was deliberate, but he'd quickly divert his eyes if I looked directly at him. Soon, I realized he never actually worked out. Machines, benches, weights, untouched. But he was always in my line of sight. One night, I noticed something worse. During squats, I looked up, and he was holding his phone directly at me, angled toward my position. I froze. Recording? Photographing? My skin crawled. The second I stared, he lowered it. Over the next week, his presence became unbearable. Across the room, near the dumbbells, always watching. Sometimes he appeared suddenly right next to me, almost breathing down my neck. I tried to change my routine, different hours, different machines. I thought maybe I could evade him. First night of my new schedule, 9 p.m. The gym was nearly empty. He wasn't there. Relief. Second night, same. It felt like I had finally outsmarted him. Then, 2 weeks later, I went out with friends to a downtown bar. Saturday night, crowded, noisy, and there he was, sitting alone at a small table near the wall, dark jacket, baseball cap low, staring at me, following my every move, every glance caught, every shift in position noted. For 20 minutes, I watched him. Each time I looked, he looked down, pretending not to notice, but the intensity of his gaze was unmistakable. I whispered to my friends that I wanted to leave. We walked a few blocks to another bar, gone, thankfully, but the chilling certainty that he could appear anywhere haunted me.
2 weeks later, I decided to go for a run on a nearby nature preserve trail. It was cloudy, late afternoon. I ran along a dirt path lined with trees. 10 minutes in, I noticed someone jogging behind me. Distance steady, unchanging. I quickened my pace. He matched it, faster. I sprinted. He sprinted too. I glanced back. A man, hat low, head down, following. Build identical to the gym stranger. Adrenaline exploded through my veins. I knew a small exit path led to a street nearby. I took it, full speed, lungs burning, footsteps echoing behind me. Finally, I emerged on the street, screaming for help. Across the road, a man in his driveway looked over. The jogger stopped at the trail's edge, hesitation clear, then turned and disappeared into the woods. I never saw him at the gym again. Weeks later, I canceled my membership, joined a gym across town, a precaution, a move to reclaim my sense of safety. Even now, the memory lingers, the feeling of being watched, pursued and hunted in ordinary spaces. My world, once predictable, had been invaded, and it left me with a heightened paranoia I can't shake.
For a while, I thought changing my gym schedule had solved the problem. For several nights, I went at 9 p.m. instead of my usual 6 p.m., and the strange man never appeared. The gym felt normal again. The mirrors reflected nothing but the usual lifters, and the quiet hum of machines replaced the unsettling silence I had grown used to. Eventually, I convinced myself I had overreacted. Maybe he was just another awkward gym member. Maybe he had simply changed his schedule too. But the feeling of being watched never fully disappeared. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, I decided to go for a run at a nature preserve near my house. It was a peaceful place, with long dirt trails that cut through dense woods. I had run there many times before. The sky was cloudy that day, the air heavy and quiet. About 10 minutes into my run, I heard footsteps behind me. At first, it seemed normal. Lots of people used the trail. But after a minute, something started to feel wrong. The distance between us never changed. No matter how fast I ran, the person behind me stayed the same distance away. Curious, I glanced back over my shoulder. A man wearing a dark baseball cap was jogging behind me. His head was tilted down, hiding most of his face. But his build, it looked exactly like the man from the gym. My stomach tightened instantly. I sped up slightly, hoping to create some distance. Within seconds, I heard his footsteps quicken, so I ran faster. Again, his pace increased. Now my heart was pounding, and adrenaline began rushing through my body. The quiet forest suddenly felt dangerous. The tall trees blocked most of the sunlight, and the trail ahead seemed darker than usual. I knew there was a small side path ahead that led to a nearby street. If I could reach it, there would be houses and people around. I began running harder. My breathing grew heavier. My legs burned. The pounding footsteps behind me grew louder. I glanced back again. He was closer now, and this time I could see his face just enough to know. It was him, the man from the gym. The moment he realized I had recognized him, he broke into a full sprint. Pure panic took over. I pushed my body as fast as it would go. The narrow dirt path appeared on my left, and I turned sharply onto it. Branches scraped against my arms as I ran. His footsteps thundered behind me. I could hear him breathing now. He was chasing me. The street was only about 50 yards ahead, but it felt like miles.
My lungs burned, my vision blurred from fear and exhaustion. Finally, I burst out of the trail and onto the road. Without thinking, I started yelling, "Help! Somebody help!" Across the street, a man standing in his driveway looked up in shock. The moment the man chasing me saw someone else, he stopped at the edge of the trail. For a few seconds, he just stood there, staring. Then he slowly turned around and ran back into the woods. Gone. The man from the driveway ran over to me as I tried to catch my breath. I could barely speak. When I looked back toward the trail, the forest was silent again, like nothing had ever happened. After that day, I never saw the man again. Not at the gym, not anywhere. But I still canceled my gym membership and joined another one across town. Because once you know someone has been watching you like that, you never really feel safe again.
For now, we stop here. But the night still holds many unknown stories. Stay with us for more heart-pounding horror tales, if you can face the darkness.